Switching gears to the NCAA god over here, Terrence Whaley. Fill us in with what's been going on.
Yeah, man. Real quick, I feel like the play-in tournament, like just to start off things, last week was really good. They had their most views ever for the play-in tournament to start March Madness, so that was great. I feel like people are tuned in that situation, but now, like I was saying, kind of like the fact that things are balanced a lot more now as far as like Kentucky doesn't have like seven fucking 5-star McDonald's All Americans and Duke doesn't have the same. Um, we're seeing a lot less like upsets, I'd say, than we're normally used to. We still had some like McNeese, who was a 12th overall seed, advanced, and then we had some 10 seeds as well. There've been close games, but they just haven't been as exciting as last year's, or not even last year's, but like just previous years past. Honestly, with like buzzer beaters and stuff like that, there haven't been many of those. And I think that there's just like there's a lack of college or of NBA first round level talent in the tournament itself. Like two of the like top five regarded picks, they played for Rutgers, and in Dylan Harper and fuck, I'm forgetting the other kid's name.
Ace.
Huh?
Is Ace Bailey in the
Yeah,
team?
Ace Bailey. Yeah, so they're on the same team together,
Yeah.
and Rutgers didn't make the tournament. So like just like not having that star power definitely hurts. And I feel like how it's looking right now. If like I was telling you off camera, I think this is probably Duke's best year to do it, and I think that would be great for the NCAA because Duke's fan base is big and people hate them, so they're kind of like um, what's the word, polarizing in that way.
Yeah.
But there are some other teams that can do it as well. Houston, where I went to school, former alumni.
Same.
Yeah, shout out Houston every time. Can also get there as well. But I do think Duke has the best route to get to the championship game, based off of who they've played so far and who they have coming. And yeah, I'll say this: I started the year kind of down on Cooper Flag, just in the sense of like seeing that I didn't know he could like get his own bucket or get his own offense. He can in ways, like he can get it from like the low post, and then he can kind of also shoot a little bit off the dribble. He's really good in transition, and like defensively he's gifted. So I do think my ceiling for him once he gets to the league is different now that I've seen enough games of him. But yeah, I'm just upset that there's not as much NBA level talent watching the games. Yeah, college I think is definitely taking a step back, at least this year.
Yeah. And you think part of that is because of like the NIL deals and whatnot?
I think I do think that a little bit plays in because now you're having players who are getting these NIL deals where their talent may not actually match, what their output is, and that just affects the overall budget of what a team can spend. So you might have had to spend like damn near $2 million to get a player who is just not as good as they were supposed to be, and that just affects the whole roster. That means you could have got another kid that might have been even better as a value add. And I think that we're seeing that come into play with the SEC because they had like 13 teams get into the tournament, which means as a whole their conference was really solid, and they probably had the most talent like top to bottom as far as all the teams that were involved in the NCAA. But they lost a lot of games. I think the only teams that are from the SEC that are still in the tournament are Alabama, Kentucky, and Tennessee, if I'm not mistaken. So like you started with 13 and now you're down to like 3 or 4 teams left. And that's just again taking away the talent that's currently in the NCAA tournament. So right now I feel like Duke really holds a lot of the talent pool, and then maybe Auburn as well, who's another SEC team. So yeah, I think it's like four teams left. I think.
Did you expect UConn to fizzle out this early? Because they were going for a three-peat, right?
Yeah, I did, because they basically lost their entire starting five except for one senior. Everybody else was like first round pick, or the other dude, their point guard, was a second round pick from last year's draft. But yeah, Newton. I forget who he's playing for, but I literally saw him on TV the other day. It might have actually been Denver. But yeah, so they usually, when you lose your whole starting five in NCAA, you never gonna turn back around and like win a bunch of games in the tournament the next year.
Are there any losses that you were the most disappointed or shocked by so far
in the tournament?
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah, I would say St. John's. St. John's losing to Arkansas. That was a 2-10 upset. So Arkansas was like the 10 seed, and St. John's was the 2 seed. That was a shocker to me, just because I felt like St. John's has a squad where they don't have pros on their team, but they're a deep squad, and they have really good guards. And what I've noticed as like a common denominator in college level anyway, the great teams, the ones that always get to the Elite Eight or Final Four, the common denominator is having great guard play. So that's why I was surprised to see them go down so early. But yeah, I think overall this year might be a little bit of an outlier as far as the talent is concerned, which is crazy because this is supposed to be one of the better NBA drafts coming up soon, or this year in June. But a lot of it also has some overseas talent and players playing in Europe in different leagues, so they're not all just coming straight from college. But yeah, I think overall this March Madness is definitely a little bit of a downgrade from previous years.
So right now it looks like you're leaning heavily as a favorite for Duke potentially winning it all.
Sadly.
Being a USC fan, I'm sorry.
Yeah, sadly.
Who
man.
On the opposite side of the bracket do you think is gonna be in that championship game?
Ooh, it's a good question. I feel like I don't want to play favorites and say Houston.
Yeah.
But if I really had to think about it, like, I would say Auburn has the best chance because they're deep and they're older too. Everybody on their roster is a senior or a graduate level player. But I'll also say Florida too. Florida's team is really good. They have good guard play. They have great shooting, great rebounding, and they're a deep team as well. And I think from a national championship perspective and a viewership perspective, I think Florida versus Duke would be a good game.